the rivalry that is heating up between OpenAI and Anthropic, the creators of Claude. And then I'm going to be jumping into a guide from Ethan Mollick, one of the top voices in artificial intelligence, where he's walking us through what are the best models right now, what you should be using on a day-to-day basis. It's a guide that Ethan puts out generally there's a lot of insights in there, so I'm going to be focusing most of the live on that. And always taking your questions live from TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. I am working on getting this live also on LinkedIn, Instagram, and some other channels. It's one thing on a very long list, but hopefully this will be able to appear in multiple places. But for now, YouTube is certainly going to be the best place to get it. Right, let's jump in. First up, this makes me laugh. See if I can full screen. No, if I full screen this, you won't be able to see it. Let me zoom in on it though. There we go. So this was yesterday at the AI Impact Summit, which I think was in Delhi. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. This is in the middle, the Prime Minister of India, Modi. Next to him is Sam Altman. We've got Dario Amodei here. We've got Demisa Sabis. We've got Sundar Pichai. Like all the big hitters in artificial intelligence are here. But I'm going to show you what happened because it is very funny. So they're all raising their hands. So Modi's getting everyone to raise their hands. There he is, holding Pichai and Altman's hand. Did you see Sam Altman looking awkward here on the bottom right? Doesn't know where to put his hand. That's because he is standing next to the CEO of Anthropic and he refuses to hold his hand. And instead they do this. So they do this thing where they both put their hands up, but they refuse to hold hands. Everybody else holding hands, triumphant here for artificial intelligence, but the head of OpenAI and the head of Anthropic refuse to touch each other. Whoever put them next to each other in this lineup is a comedic genius. It just makes me laugh. There's also a part in the clip where Modi, the Prime Minister of India, he's telling them like, hold hands, and they just don't do it. And they end up in this awkward position instead where they are crossing over but refusing to hold each other's hands. Somebody in chat says, feels like a petty high school drama. It does, but between multi-billionaires. So the bit that makes me crack up is this. It's Sam Altman looking to his left and being like, oh shit, Dario is standing there. I don't want to hold his hand. And then this was the compromise. Not thinking that everybody would see this and find it extremely funny. This obviously is like a high school drama. This is very silly. We can laugh at it, but it does underlie larger currents going on and the heating up rivalry between ChatGPT, creators OpenAI, and Anthropic, the creators of Claude. Now, it must be pointed out that these are very different companies. So this came up recently at the Super Bowl. Anthropic ran an advert lampooning OpenAI, ChatGPT, for adding adverts into ChatGPT responses. So they basically said, we'd never do that to you. Anthropic will never put advertising in. You're always going to get the best answer and we won't be swayed by adverts, which was a direct attack at ChatGPT because ChatGPT announced a few days before that they're rolling out their adverts. And they actually rolled out adverts in America for the first time a day after the Super Bowl, which was either brave or they'd already decided on that and they just had to go with it. So we've been seeing this kind of rivalry bubbling up. Sam Altman has very rightly pointed out that they're on different levels. So the number of users of Claude, let's look it up. Claude monthly active users. Okay, it doesn't even show Claude AI, which is telling. So monthly active users apparently is around 20 million. That can't be right. That's 2025. That's tiny. Should we ask Claude? What are the monthly active users of Claude AI? Notice that when I put in Claude, it didn't even show up Claude AI immediately in Google. That's kind of telling. Very few people know what the hell Claude is. If you are watching this, if you are interested in artificial intelligence, you probably know what Claude is and maybe even use it. I personally use it as my main model. It's my daily driver. However, we're in the tiny minority. Most people know what ChatGPT is. This is 20 million active users. That's tiny. 30 million. So it looks like tens of millions. The number of people using ChatGPT is around 900 million. So 30 times this. Very, very different companies. And Sam Altman, I think very correctly, he pushed back on Anthropic saying, hey, we're doing something different. Basically, we're really successful and a lot of people use our models. We want to make sure that intelligence is freely available to the world. We want to make sure that billions of people can use our service. We can't do that unless we have revenue coming in from advertising that allows us to support that free model. And he pushed back on Anthropic saying, that's fine for you guys. You guys charge $100, $200 a month. You have coders who are willing to pay for that. But that means you have a very small, very elite basis for your artificial intelligence, whereas we're broader and much more democratic. Sam had a really good point there. That is the split we're starting to see. Obviously, they don't like each other personally, but we're also seeing a split in the accessibility of these models. I use Claude, but I pay $200 a month for Claude. That is not cheap. Even in a Western country like the UK or America, that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money to spend on an artificial intelligence. And for the vast majority of people out there, that is not going to be feasible. However, many people can use ChatGPT for free, or you can use the $20 a month and get access to Codex, which is a really good coding product, which is, I would say, almost, if not as good as Claude Code right now, for 1/10 of the price. So OpenAI are the more accessible AI. So this is what we're seeing in the background. Yes, it looks petty on stage, but there's also very different values determining the rollout of artificial intelligence. I know they like to talk about safety. I know they like to talk about ethics. They are a very, very small player compared to OpenAI. With a very, very good model, but the majority of the world does not use it. Artificial intelligence is ChatGPT. And ChatGPT have scored another point, and it's connected to OpenClaw. So 3 weeks ago, it was not a long time ago, we had ClawBot, exploded all over the internet. 2 days later, it was forced to change its name to Moltbot because Anthropic, the creators of Claude, sent a cease and desist saying, no, you cannot call it ClawBot, CLAWD, because it sounds too similar to Claude, CLAUDE. That is fair. You need to protect your trademarks. You need to protect your intellectual property. It's normal to send your lawyers after anyone who could potentially be misrepresenting or muddying your trademarks. A couple of days later, Peter, the creator of ClawBot, then Moltbot, he changed it to OpenClaw. And then on Sunday, Peter was hired by OpenAI. So they've brought him in, presumably for, I would guess, hundreds of millions of dollars. I think it would be in that range. I'm seeing some people floating the $1 billion number. I don't think it would be that high because what he hasn't even sold it. What he's bought in is an open source piece of software. So they haven't been able to just purchase that piece of software. The point is, OpenAI have bought in Peter Steinberg, paying him very well. He's going to be working with OpenAI to build something in the agentic realm, some form of ClawBot, some form of OpenClaw within the ecosystem. But at the same time, Adam GPT, he's GTM at OpenAI, he tweeted, this was yesterday, your ChatGPT subscription, shaking hands with OpenClaw. One of the cheapest, best ways to use OpenClaw right now is to attach your subscription. So you can attach your ChatGPT subscription and get access to Codex inside of OpenClaw, attach your Anthropic, your Claude subscription, and get access to Claude Code, get access to Claude, Opus 4.6, etc. inside of OpenClaw. Now, Anthropic started banning accounts or restricting accounts because they said this is against our terms of service. You are not allowed to use your subscription inside of third-party software. For authentication using OAuth tokens obtained through Claude Free, Pro, or Max accounts in any other product, tool, or service, which is OpenClaw basically, including the agent SDK, is not permitted and constitutes a violation of consumer terms and services. So they locked the door. They said, no, you may not use Claude inside of OpenClaw. This came hot on the heels of them pushing back against the name and forcing Peter to change the name. So that week, Anthropic could kind of look like the bad guys. It's very understandable that they protected their IP, but from a PR point of view, billion-dollar companies stamping on a one-person dev team, basically an open source project with one dude called Peter running it, and the most popular open source project we've had in decades. So it just looked like Anthropic being the bad guys. From a PR point of view, it was terrible. From a legal point of view, I get it, but maybe they should have talked. Maybe they should have discussed how they went about it inside of the company instead of just coming out looking like the bad guys. OpenAI are now in a great position because they have brought Peter on. They have basically made OpenClaw official, and they're saying, okay, we're going to let you use your subscription officially inside of OpenClaw. So they are, again, outmaneuvering Anthropic here. Anthropic messed up. They started shutting down accounts. People were like, what the hell are you doing? This is my account. I want to use it how I want to use it. But Anthropic came in heavy-handed. So OpenAI is saying, okay, that's fine. You can use your ChatGPT account. So they are positioning themselves as the good guys here. And they're doing a very good job of doing so as well. I'm seeing a lot of people turning away from Anthropic. Anthropic have always been the beloved company in this space. They've done things safely, they've done things ethically, they always have very good models, they still have very good models. Claude Code is fantastic, but suddenly there's a shift amongst the people who use AI every day, amongst the coders, amongst people who are building with AI. There's a shift back towards OpenAI. Now we're going back to OpenAI, which is a shift I did not expect to see. And this is why these guys failing to hold hands on stage here look silly, but there's something much, much larger going on here behind this rivalry. Apparently 5'7" is the perfect height to be a founder. Amodei is 5.7. I think Sam Altman, what is he, 5'8"? Day is 5'7", it looks like. Demis Hassabis is maybe 5'6". So you have to be around 5'7", what's that, 1.7 meters or so, if you want to run a lab. Sundar Pichai here is messing it up. I'm going to answer some questions and I'm going to look at Ethan Mollick's new guide, which came out yesterday. I'll go through it in detail and I'll put it in the newsletter as well. Let's have a look at questions before I jump into that though. Charles says, yeah, CEOs are having petty fights. Yeah, they are. They're just as petty. They just have a lot more money to throw around. I mean, look at Musk. He's extremely petty sometimes, but he also has millions, if not billions of dollars to throw behind being petty. I'm British, obviously. I'm actually quite pleased with how we've been dealing with the Epstein stuff over here in the UK. So there were some links between the Epstein files, Peter Mandelson, well, definite links with Peter Mandelson and Mandelson to our Prime Minister. Our Prime Minister came under a lot of heat and there was a potential that he had to resign. Now, a member of the royal family, the King's brother, has just been arrested this morning in the UK. It's good to see that people in power are not getting off. They are being brought to task. When I'm building websites, I prefer not to do it using ClawBot. I need to visually see them. I need to play around with the site. And that's just a much easier job. If I'm sitting at a computer, I can have my coding interface and preview the site and see what I'm doing. You could do it using OpenClaw. You could also use OpenClaw on your main computer. But if you're sitting at your computer anyway, and you are working actively on a project, setting it to work, looking at the draft, giving corrections, etc., OpenClaw doesn't give you that much extra power. It's not necessarily the best tool for the job. OpenClaw is really great for being on your phone, for being able to give it tasks while you're out and about, and it will go off and do them, and it will report back to you for tasks when you're asleep. It will bring you the results in the morning. It's good for asynchronous work. With a website, you probably want a more active workflow, talking directly to the AI. I'd do it on the computer and sit with Codex or Claude Code. If you are instead making lots and lots of websites, if they are programmatic and you're making lots of variations, do it on ClawBot, OpenClaw, and let it go off and do its own thing. But otherwise, I would just sit down and get the work done for that particular tool. Claude is serving enterprise B2B so they can afford not to put out ads. They also have less of a burn rate because they have less people using their servers. The big problem for OpenAI is that they have 800 million users actively using ChatGPT. That puts a huge amount of burden on the servers. They need to raise money to keep those servers going. Anthropic don't have as many users. Some are burning tokens using Claude Code. Claude Code API is not cheap. Opus 4.6 on the API is not cheap. That's the different dynamics. OpenAI has a B2C product. Huge amount of people using it means their inference costs running those servers, the electricity, buying more GPUs costs a lot of money, or their cloud. Anthropic, tighter, smaller user base of 30 million, so 30 times less. That user base are professionals, they're coders, willing to spend a couple of $100 a month through the subscription, or thousands through the API because they're getting a return. So it's a different business. One's B2B, it's for professionals, and the other one is B2C, everybody. Very different. GPT is going for full B2C, yeah. They always go for the viral use case. And that's why they pushed out things like, I was about to say Suno, that's why they pushed out things like Sora. And then they didn't really bother to get Sora into most people's hands. It's still limited in how much you can use it and where you can use it. So they went for the viral moment. Everyone was like, oh my God, Hollywood is dead, or whatever, like we do every single time something new comes out. They got their viral moment, got people to download the app. People were like, oh, how do I use Sora? How do I get access? It's not in my country. And then the virality petered out, and that's fine because by that point they have a lot of people on the app. Google did the same playbook with Nano Banana and Nano Banana Pro, and that's what led to Gemini finally being adopted. So it was not about Gemini being a good large language model, it was about Nano Banana Pro. So Anthropic don't do image, they do not do video, they do coding. It's really hard to have a viral moment when it comes to coding because it's a relatively small pool of people. And visually, it's a bit boring on social media. There's nothing to show that is visually attractive. Whereas with things like Seed Dance recently, even Higgsfield, you can get viral moments by creating AI video and AI imagery. Anthropic have never done that because they don't have any image generation or certainly no video generation inside of their model. They're very, very, very focused. Lyria says still prefer Claude. Claude is fantastic. Sonnet 4.6. Opus 4.6 came out last week and is extremely good. However, it's only viable if you have the $100 a month or the $200 a month plan. Otherwise, you will talk to Opus 4.6, I don't know, 5 times, and then it'd be like, okay, that's it, that's enough for the day. So even on the $20 a month plan, you would get a couple of turns, and then it'd be like, okay, done. So you had to really be on $100 or $200 a month, which meant it was out of budget for a lot of people. So Sonnet 4.6 came out 2 days ago. Very good. It's not as good as Opus 4.6, but that's fine. They're not meant to be. Opus is always the top model, then Sonnet, then Haiku. That's how they've always done it. But you get a lot more usage. So this is a better workhorse model. And if you're on the $20 a month plan, this now means you have a feasible model that you can use. It also, and I missed this, and I think a lot of people missed this, it has a 1 million token context window. Gemini has a huge context window, which means you can put a lot of information into it. You can give it whole books, you can give it multiple books, and it can work with that information. ChatGPT doesn't have a context window like that. It's relatively small, and nor did Claude up until recently. So Opus 4.6 and Sonnet 4.6 have a 1 million token context window. Huge, absolutely massive. So that means it can deal with more information at the same time, and you can work with it for longer without it basically forgetting what was happening earlier on, which is still a massive problem with ChatGPT. Sonnet 4.6 is very good, and if you're on the $20 a month plan, it's going to be the best model for you at the moment. But I don't have a huge amount more to say about it. We get to this point where, and I'll talk about this when I cover Ethan Mollick's article, we get to this point where all the models are very, very good, really, really good, but we're not necessarily upgrading the level of tasks that we give to them. So if we've been doing the same task for a couple of years, initially the models weren't very good at it, then they got pretty good at it, now they're very good at it, and now all the models are very good at that task. It's kind of up to us as humans to work out, okay, what else can I push it with? What else can I do with this? If you just continue doing the same task, then basically all of the models will be very good, and it doesn't really matter which one you use. What happens though is if you start thinking, could I do this? Or could I do this? Or could I do this? And you start to push the frontiers of what you are doing, that's when you'll run up against the edge cases with the models and realize that, okay, Sonnet 4.6 isn't very good at this, but Gemini is really good at this. And then you might look at switching. But for most use cases, 80% of use cases, most of the models are now intelligent enough to deal with them. But I know if you're watching this, if you are really interested in AI, we're always looking at those complicated edge cases, pushing the frontiers and forgetting that actually they can do an awful lot of very basic stuff very well now. All of the models, doesn't matter who you're using, even Grok. What's better for non-coders? It depends what you're doing. Lyra's saying, I'm a non-coder and prefer Claude, but it entirely depends what you are doing. If you are writing, probably Claude. For business uses, probably Claude. One thing that I really like about it is its unified memory. So it remembers across all of my different conversations, which means I'm able to, I was talking to it about my live stream yesterday, about learning Greek. And it said, it's like, oh, you're learning Greek. That's interesting because how are you going to mix this with your Mandarin studies? It knew that I also study Mandarin. So because of that, it was able to tweak its recommendations. And it was saying, make sure you don't overload yourself or mix them up. And make sure you're learning Greek on one day and Mandarin on another so you don't get them mixed up. That's quite cool that it has this more holistic view of who I am. Claude and Gemini do have unified memories, but they're a lot more clunky and you have to invoke them. You have to be like, can you remember what we talked about in that other conversation? For me, that kind of undercuts the purpose of a unified memory. I want it to pull in information from other chats. For me, personally, I find ChatGPT really useful for that reason. It will remind me of things, or it will cross-connect. Or if I'm talking about my business, it already has all the context about what I do within my business. It's able to pull in information without me having to provide that context each and every time. From an ease of use point of view, really cool for that reason. That said, I use Claude for 70% of my tasks, and then 30% maybe is ChatGPT. But you have to think about what are the tasks you want to do. That is the important thing, and then try the models based on that. So there's no one size fits all answer here. So I'm just scrolling up. Here we go. Anthropic L, yeah. Anthropic are in a weird place right now. Oh, they're also, I'll cover it another time. The Pentagon is threatening to declare, what is it? They're threatening to declare them a threat to national security. Pentagon may label Anthropic, the creators of Claude, a supply chain risk. So I feel for them. Anthropic are having a really rough 2026. What did they do? I need to actually cover this properly. But yeah, they did some work for the Pentagon, and it was connected to the Venezuela kidnapping. I'm not sure what word we're using. So defense, I haven't read enough about this to be able to talk about it. So I'm just going to quickly get this, and then I'll cover it on another show because this is wild. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is close to cutting business ties with Anthropic and designating the AI company a supply chain risk. These are very different things. Cutting business ties, fine, you drop a vendor, but calling them a supply chain risk is an escalation, meaning anyone who wants to do business with the US military has to cut ties with the company. A senior official says it will be an enormous pain in the ass to disentangle. And we're going to make sure they pay the price for forcing our hands like this. Why it matters, this kind of penalty is usually reserved for foreign adversaries. So the chief Pentagon spokesman says the Department of War's relation, that's the new name for the Pentagon, I think, isn't it? The relationship with Anthropic is being reviewed. Our nation requires that our partners be willing to help our warfighters win in any fight. Ultimately, this is about our troops and the safety of American people. So I believe, and I need to look at this, that this is because Anthropic said they were unhappy getting involved in, or their model being used in Venezuela and the kidnapping of the leader. I don't know enough about this, so I'm not going to cover it now. I think this adds to the fact that Anthropic are having a rough 2026. I wish them all the best because they make an amazing model, and to be caught up in all this PR nightmares, potentially being labeled supply chain risk by the Pentagon is pretty rough. Thank you, Lyria. You're talking about what you've been using Cowork for. Cowork is fantastic. I'm going to talk about Cowork in a minute in this guide. Cowork is basically the Claude code, but a non-technical version, which can control your computer. Because Claude Code, despite being called Claude Code, and having that code in the name, is really useful for non-coding tasks. I think they shot themselves in the foot by calling it Claude Code. Most people who want to use it will be like, I'm not a coder. So they created something called Cowork, which is more accessible, user-friendly. What do you get with $200 subscription as opposed to the $20 or free version usage? With $200, you can use Opus 4.6 most of the day, whereas on the $100, you'll hit a limit with Opus 4.6 and it'll be like, okay, come back. And with the $20, you'll hit that limit in maybe 5 or 6 turns and it'll cut you off for the day. Which if you are trying to work, if you're trying to build, if you're trying to launch, let's say you're halfway through making changes to a website and suddenly Opus is like, okay, we're done here. That's disruptive to running a business. So that's why you might want to spend more on it. And the way I see it is that $200 a month is a lot less than hiring somebody to do the work, like a lot less than bringing in a freelancer or even hiring someone on salary. Ryan, morning, how are you doing? Since GPT-4 was removed, we can use it via OpenAI. Yes, you can use the API. However, will it have the same memory? No, it will not. So you can go to developers.openai.com to access the API. I'm going to go into my API dashboard. So I made this the other day. So this is a 4.0 project. So this is using 4.0. Switch to 4.1. Where is 4.0? It's here somewhere. There we go. GPT-4. I can now set a system message. I can set prompt messages, and then I can chat with it here in the sandbox, or I can deploy it in my own application. So let's say, what model are you? I'm based on OpenAI's GPT-4 architecture. I am talking to 4.0 at the moment. It doesn't know it's 4.0, but that's fairly usual. However, your memory is not here. So you'd have to set up a secondary memory and give it access to that, which you can do if you're building an application. It's a bit of a faff. What you can do instead is use somebody who's already built an application, something like Launch Lemonade, which you've heard me talk about in videos before, has access to GPT-4.0 as well as all the other models. You can give it its own knowledge base. That could be Word documents, it could be a Google Drive, and it will work with that knowledge base. You can give it a memory that way. If you can build it yourself, you could use Lovable to build an application. You could use Cursor, you could use Claude Code, and then you connect it to the GPT-4.0 API, and then you give it a separate memory bank, and then you would basically have GPT-4.0, but it's a little bit technical. Definitely doable, but it is technical. So instead, you could use something like Launch Lemonade, and they've already done the heavy lifting for you. You would just choose the model, set up a memory bank, give it a system prompt, which is how you want them to interact with you. So you can set the tone, response style, etc. And then boom, you're done. And you'll have GPT 4.0. In terms of bringing memory from your previous GPT 4.0, that's tricky. You would have had to, before they deprecated it, ask for a summary of everything that's been discussed, everything that it remembers about you. And then you could take that and move it into your new version. I know there's a strong 4.0 community, and I'm sure they have certain recommendations for how you get the memory out. I think now, though, that it's deprecated in the app, that's going to be tricky because you can't get access to 4.0 to get the memories out, if that makes sense. What's your BG? My background? I have a degree in history. Lyra saying she hasn't hit a limit on the $100 a month Claude plan, but I don't use it all day, usually up to 5 or 6 hours. Yeah. So I've never hit the limit on the $200 a month plan. So if you are just sitting and talking to your AI for 5 hours, 6 hours, it's unlikely that you're going to hit that limit. If you have multiple agents and they're all off doing different things, that means they're all burning tokens. That's when you can start to run into limits. So if I have multiple Claude Code agents all doing tasks at the same time, let's say I have 10 of them off doing things, that's going to be running through my tokens 10 times faster than if it's just me sitting and talking to an AI. So the capacity really matters, because it's unlikely that you are, as a human, going to sit there for 16, 18 hours a day, like working with Claude Code. But if you spin off agents and they autonomously go and do work for you, you can hit that much faster because it's no longer dependent on your physical time. Lyra has an answer. You can download your whole history from OpenAI, which has all your chats. So go to OpenAI, get your history, then you can create your own instance of 4.0, either using the API, move your OpenAI chat into its history, say, hey, this is our prior history, or you can do that and launch Lemonade, and then it should be able to get back on track with those discussions. Thank you, Lyra. I knew there'd be a way. So you can download your whole history, and then you can delete your account if you want. I know a lot of people were very upset with OpenAI. I'm considering coaching with AI. I'm wondering how to start to sell a solution to a client. Do you mean coaching them how to use AI, or like life, personal work coaching, but implementing AI as well? Happy to answer that, but if you can specify. Right, we're going to have a look at this. So Ethan Mollick is one of the people that I recommend you follow. He wrote a book called Co-Intelligence. Highly recommend it. There are very few books on artificial intelligence that are useful because they go out of date so quickly. Co-Intelligence is one of them because it's about how to think about AI. So it's not specific to what AI we're using at the moment, but more generally how to think about generative AI. So he does this guide once every 3 or 4 months, basically saying, hey, this is the landscape right now. These are the AIs you should be looking at. These are the kind of tools. This is the first time that he is not just saying, here's the best model for this certain task. This is the model that you should be using. So he's done 8 guides, but this is the first one. So I'll read what he says. I've written 8 of these guides since ChatGPT came out, but this version represents a very large break with the past because what it means to use AI has changed dramatically. Until a few months ago, the vast majority of people using AI meant talking to a chatbot in a back and forth conversation. But over the past few months, it has become practical to use AI as an agent. You can assign them to a task and they do it, using tools as appropriate. Because of this change, you have to consider 3 things when deciding which AI to use: models, apps, and harnesses. So he's changed the format of his guide. First time he's ever done it. We were just talking about your usage of Claude and why on earth would you need a $200 a month plan? This is the reason. It's no longer just you going back and forth with your AI. Your AI is now off doing its own things. Your AI is now able to complete tasks by itself. This is also why OpenClaw or ClawBot is so important. When I talk to ClawBot, I have it doing tasks for me, and it is off doing them in the background, using up my AI usage without me being there for the back and forth. So we're shifting towards this agentic future of AI. That's why people got really excited about ClawBot. That's why people got excited about OpenClaw, the new version of it, because it's a preview of where we are going with artificial intelligence. This is not the type of AI that most people are using. Most people are still chatting to ChatGPT. Nothing wrong with that. But what we're starting to see more at the edge, for people who are watching this stream, watching this on YouTube later, we're able to do a lot more with AI, which puts us in a really good position. So Ethan Mollick this time is talking about models. So that's going to be ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, apps and harnesses. Harnesses will be new. We'll cover that in here. I'm going to put this whole guide into the newsletter. Fantastic guide. Every time it comes out, every few months, I recommend people read. I'm just going to run through the basics here. So here we go. Models are the underlying AI brains. And the big three, the ones I just said, are GPT, so ChatGPT, Claude Opus, and Gemini 3 Pro. So GPT 5.2 or 5.3, Claude Opus 4.6, and Gemini 3 Pro. So these are the models from OpenAI, from Anthropic, and from Google. You don't need to remember every single number. You don't need to know every single name. All of that's kind of details. What you need to remember is the three big model creators. There is OpenAI, they create ChatGPT. There is Anthropic, they create Claude. And there is Google, and they create Gemini. That's kind of what you need to know. And then within those, you just use the most up-to-date latest model, generally. So these are the big three. There's also Grok from xAI, Elon Musk's AI company. I will mention them. They do have a frontier level model. It's a very good model. It is not as good as these other models. So what they've done is incredibly impressive. They've come from nowhere and created a frontier state-of-the-art level model in a very short amount of time. They didn't exist a few years ago, just by brute forcing their way with a lot of spend. So that's extremely impressive. However, the model is not as good as the other ones that we're working with. They are behind. So there's no real good reason to use Grok unless you want access to Twitter data. So big three, ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. That's it. These are what determine how smart the system is. So the model underlying, how well it reasons, how good it is at writing or coding or analyzing a spreadsheet, and how well it can see images or create them. Although Claude can't do that. Models are what benchmarks measure and what the AI companies race to improve. When people say Claude is better at writing or ChatGPT is better at math, they are talking about models. Apps, this is the next layer. They're the products you actually use to talk to a model. So the most common app is the website for each of these models. So chatgpt.com, claude.ai, gemini.google.com. And on your telephone, there's going to be the ChatGPT app, the Claude app, and the Gemini app. So interestingly, ChatGPT is not a model. The model is GPT 5.3 or GPT 5.2 or GPT 4.0. That is the model. That is the large language model. The app is ChatGPT, and inside of the app is this model. It's kind of nuanced. It doesn't really matter, but ChatGPT itself is not a large language model. It is the application. It's confusing and not that important. Increasingly, there are other apps made by each of these companies as well, including coding tools like OpenAI Codex, we love Codex, and Claude Code, and desktop apps like Claude Cowork. So Lyria in chat was just talking about Claude Cowork, and we'll talk about it below because it's very, very cool. And then the third thing, this might be new for people, harnesses. So we've got models, we've got apps, and we have harnesses. Harnesses are what let the power of the AI model do real work. Like a horse harness takes the raw power of the horse and lets it pull a cart or plow. A harness is a system that lets the AI use tools, take actions, and complete multi-step tasks on its own. Apps come with a harness. Claude on the website has a harness that lets Opus 4.6 do web searches and write code, but also has instructions about how to approach various problems like creating spreadsheets or doing graphic design work. Claude Code has an even more extensive harness. It gives Claude 4.6 Opus a virtual computer, a web browser, a code terminal, and the ability to string these together to do stuff, like researching, building, and testing new websites from scratch. This is the shift. Previously, we would talk to ChatGPT, it would give us information, it could write code for us, but then we'd have to take that code and take it over to whatever we were using to build a website. It would not build for us. Now we're moving into a time where you won't just ask the AI or the model for information. It won't just deliver the code to you, but it will actually go and put that code in the right place, connect it up, create your folder structure, give you a preview, help you debug, help you work out what is going on. It will build the thing for you. So it will do stuff like researching, building, and testing your website from scratch. Manus, recently acquired by Meta, was a standalone harness that could wrap around multiple models. OpenClaw, which made big news recently, is mostly a harness which allows you to use any AI model locally on your computer. That is why when I talk about OpenClaw, people are always saying, oh, what computer do you need? Or do you need to buy a Mac Mini to run OpenClaw? No, because OpenClaw is a harness. OpenClaw is a piece of software. It's a couple of megabytes, so I think it's very small. You can put OpenClaw on a device like this. This is a $50 Raspberry Pi. It will run on this because the harness itself is very lightweight. The harness is connecting to all of the other tools, including the large language model. So the harness itself, very, very lightweight. This is relatively new. Think of it like the conductor. So it's connecting all of these different things. It's like a foreman, it's like a conductor, and it is pathing your requests to the specific tools. It's checking to make sure the work is done and basically pulling everything together. This is relatively new. This is what is very exciting moving forward when we move into agentic AI. Previously, with the models, we would have to invoke them. We would have to sit down and say, can you do some research for me? We'd sit there, wait for the research, read the research, and give our responses. It's a back and forth process. That is no longer the case. So right now, I have a laptop over there running 5 different agents doing different things for me, and they're just off in the background. I can see 2 of them are finished, 3 of them are still going, and they've been going for 45 minutes. AIs can go off and do things themselves because of these harnesses. Until recently, you didn't have to know this. The model was the product, the app was the website, and the harness was minimal. You didn't think about it, it was just there. You typed, it responded, you typed again. Now the same model can behave very differently depending on what harness it's operating in. Claude Opus 4.6 talking to you in a chat window is a very different experience from Claude Opus 4.6 operating inside Claude Code, autonomously writing and testing software for hours at a stretch. GPT 5.2 answering questions is a very different experience from GPT 5 thinking, navigating websites and building you a slide deck. It means that the question, which AI should I use, has gotten harder to answer because the answer depends on what you're trying to do. So somebody asked earlier in the chat, what's the best AI? Which one should I be using? And I answered, it depends what you're doing. Are you coding? Are you researching? Are you doing creative writing? Are you setting up a scheduled task to give you a morning summary every day, like a virtual assistant? It depends. And depending on what you're trying to do with the AI, you're going to be using different tools. So let me walk you through the landscape. So it starts with the models. You mentioned 3 models, GPT 5.2, Claude Opus 4.6, and Gemini 3 Pro. You will probably know them as their app name, ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. We're not going to worry about that too much. The top models are remarkably close. Yes, they're all very good. That is the main takeaway. You can't really go wrong with one of the state-of-the-art models right now. But he says, if you want to use an advanced AI seriously, you need to pay. You have to pay at least $20 a month. Those $20 get you 2 things, a choice of which model to use and the ability to use the more advanced frontier model and apps. I wish I could tell you free models are as good as paid models, but they are not. I get so many people in my comments who are like, AI is stupid, it can't do this. And I'll ask them like, do you pay? Are you paying for ChatGPT? Are you paying for Claude? And they'll be like, no, I'll never pay for AI. It's so stupid. And it's like, my man, you're using an AI from a year ago. You're using a crap model. Like, no wonder it's crap. You're using the instant model or the flash model or whatever it is. That's why you're getting bad answers. But that's a really hard argument for me to make because they're not going to pay to use artificial intelligence unless they think it's useful for them. But unfortunately, the free models that they get are not very good. But that is always the case. And because I have thousands of people commenting, I get exposed to that a lot with people saying, it's crap. Are you using free? Yes. That's why. So you have to pay, I'm afraid. It's $20 a month. If you are in certain countries, you can get access to GPT Go, which is about $8 a month. So it's more affordable. So those $20 get you 2 things. You can choose the model and you get more tools, basically. The free models are optimized for chat rather than accuracy. So they are very fast and fun to talk to, but less accurate and capable. Yeah. So things like hallucinations, AI is getting things wrong. That is increasingly not really a problem. When you use a deep research mode, when you use a thinking mode, it will much better source the facts it's giving you. On the free model, it's more liable to make stuff up, unfortunately. Often when someone posts an example of AI doing something stupid, it is because they are either using the free model, they have not selected a smarter model to work with. So if you go into ChatGPT, it will not necessarily pick, can you see it says 5.2 up here? And it's in auto. We want to move it into pro or thinking. We want to force it into thinking mode if we want the best answers. But by default, it will not do that. It will be in auto mode. If you really care about the quality of the answer, force it into thinking. So the big 3 frontier models are Claude Opus 4.6, and now, as of 2 days ago, Sonnet 4.6, but Opus is still top of the range. Gemini 3 Pro, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a new Gemini soon. And OpenAI's 5.2 thinking. We have just got 5.3, but it is not yet in the app itself. It will be soon though. With all of these options, you get access to top-of-the-line AI models with a voice mode, the ability to see images and documents, okay, because you cannot generate images in Claude, but that's fine. The ability to execute code, good mobile apps, and the ability to create images and video, however. They all have different personalities and strengths and weaknesses, but for most people, just selecting the one they like the best will suffice. Try them all. Which tone of voice, which results do you find most useful? And go with that, because they are all very good. Also, if you already have access to like Gemini via, if you have like a paid Gmail account in your workspace, for example, you're going to have Gemini anyway, so maybe just use that. Personally, this is totally personal, I use Claude, and I think Claude is the best model, but that is personal to me because I like the way it talks, I like the way it will push back, I like the way that if I try to get it to do something which is obviously not a very good idea, it will tell me, it will say, are you sure about that? And it will actually push back on me, whereas ChatGPT will not. However, some people prefer a model that doesn't push back. It depends on you. This is a personal thing at this point. So when you're using any AI app, including the phone apps, the single most important thing you can do is pick the right model, which the AI companies do not make easy. In ChatGPT, it will default to the auto mode. That is them saving money. They don't want you using thinking. If you use thinking mode, it's costing them more compute. So they would rather, by default, people use not a smart model and get 80% of the way, but it's going to cost them a lot less. So they will make it slightly harder for you to choose the best model. If you're just chatting, the default modes are fine. If you want to do real work, they're not. No matter whether you use the free or the paid version, the default is always ChatGPT 5.2. That is auto. The issue is that 5.2 is not one model. From the very weak GPT 5.2 mini to the very good GPT 5.2 thinking to the extremely powerful GPT 5.2 Pro. This is the one that was solving mathematical problems. When people are like, oh, it can't count, it can't do maths, it can't count the number of R's in strawberry, but at the same time a model was winning the math Olympiad, that's why, because the Pro model was being used. When you select GPT 5.2, what you're really getting is auto mode. So see, it says 5.2 at the top here. When I click the drop down, it says auto. So the one that I'm actually selected on is auto. So we just stick it into thinking. It's going to take longer to give us the answer, but that will give us a high quality answer. So drop down here, there is greater variation within the thinking mode. So again, it's a big issue. You're going to put it into there. The Pro one is only available on the top plan. We could do GPT 5.2 Pro extended thinking. That's going to be the heaviest thinking. Now, most of you won't have the Pro because it's only on, I don't know how much the plan costs, but a lot of money. Here we go. So I always manually select, this is Ethan again, GPT 5.2 Thinking Extended, which is on the $20 a month. Let's do so GPT 5.2, what did he say? Thinking Extended. So GPT 5.2 Thinking Extended. There we go. On the $20 a month. Or GPT 5.2 Thinking Heavy on the more expensive plan. See, they don't make it easy, do they? Remember back with GPT-5, they tried to make it so there was one model. We could only select one model. And now we have, well, let's have a look. We have instant, that's one model. We have thinking, which is actually 1, 2, 3, 4. It has 4 different levels of juice or thinking effort. So it's another 4 models, or one model, but with 4 variations. And then Pro, which has another 2. So what's that? 6 or 7 variations. And then you have the legacy models. You have 5.1, blah, 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 all of them here. So they tried to go to one model, did not work. And now we have a huge amount of models. And if you go into the API, even more. There's a huge variation there. For Gemini, you have 3 options: Gemini 3.1 Flash, Gemini 3 Thinking, and for some, 3 Pro. If you pay for the Ultra plan, so I don't have this, this is the only one I don't have, you get access to Gemini's Deep Think for very hard problems, which is another menu. Always pick Gemini 3 Pro for serious problems, and then for Claude, pick Opus 4.6, though the new Sonnet 4.6 is also powerful, and turn on extended thinking. So on the $20 a month, you will not get much usage if you follow Ethan's recommendation here. If you put it into Opus 4.6, stick it on extended thinking, set it on a problem, do that 2 or 3 times, Claude will be saying, that's it, we're done for the day, I'll see you. So if you're on $20 a month, you probably want to be using Sonnet 4.6, but try both and see how it works for you. For most people, the model difference are now small enough that the app and the harness matter less than the model, which brings us to the bigger question. I have to solve a puzzle to stay online. I'm going to answer some questions and then loop back. Is there an agent mode in Gemini? No, Gemini is a weird one. They have agentic tools that are powered by Gemini, but directly, no, I don't think there is one. What about GPT agent mode? Is it good and can actually do tasks correctly? I don't find the ChatGPT agent very good, personally. The one inside the app. It's fine. It depends what you're trying to do. But if you're trying to do web research, you might want to use a browser. So you can use Atlas. Or Chrome have an agentic browser. I saw it 2 weeks ago when I was at Google. It's in America right now. But there is an agentic browser which fully goes into Chrome. And I watched a guy book train tickets on his Chrome, which was really cool. So we have Atlas, we have Comet, we have Strawberry, and a bunch of other agentic browsers. I think they're all going to get blown out of the water as soon as Chrome just makes their agentic browsing better. And that is based on Gemini. And from what I saw a couple of weeks ago at Google, very, very cool. How do you structure OpenClaw models for different tasks? Big question. I'm lazy and I'm putting them all through Claude Opus 4.6. That's because I have access and I have the budget to do it. Don't recommend doing that. Ideally, if you have a local setup and you have a powerful enough computer, give it a local model that's going to work. Otherwise, Minimax, have a really cool, it's not called ClawBot, it's called OpenClaw. I need to get this right. Minimax M2.5. I would be using this if I wasn't using Claude Opus 4.6, personally. And yes, you can use different models for different things. For your different sub-agents, you're going to give different access to different models. Let's say you have one that's writing social posts. Maybe you decide Grok is better at writing social posts, whereas for research tasks, you might want to send it to ChatGPT, and for coding tasks, it's going to Claude. You can do that, and it depends on what you get trying to do. Ethan Mollick, go and follow him everywhere. He's fantastic. He's written a really good book. I will put this in the newsletter. So if you go to aiwithkyle.com, you can join the newsletter, and the summary of all of this, plus the links, etc., will be in the newsletter. It will also be edited and chopped up and put on YouTube as well. Okay, so let's continue. So we've done models. Basically, Ethan says they're all good. Absolutely fine. I agree with them. They're all very good. So the bigger questions are going to be the app and increasingly the harnesses if we are doing agentic work, which we're working towards. So the apps. The vast majority of people use chatbots, the main website or mobile apps of ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini to access the model. So that's when we go. It has a text bar at the bottom. We chat or we talk using a microphone, and we go back and forward. That's how we've been using AI for the last couple of years, basically, generative AI. In fact, we can call chatbots the most important and widespread AI app. In the past few months, these apps have become quite different. So some of the differences are which features are bundled with the AI. So Gemini has Nano Banana, which is amazing, Nano Banana Pro, Veo, which is a video generation app, guided learning, which doesn't just give you the answer, but it helps you learn the answer, and deep research. So these are like functions that are built into the application. And a lot of the time, what the app has will determine whether you want to use it or not. And Google are probably the ones who are introducing the most interesting stuff. We'll probably talk about NotebookLM in a moment, and because they have a whole ecosystem of different products and they're starting to pull them together. And we've heard things like AI Studio is going to be merging with anti-gravity as well. So this is very Google. They spin off many different product teams, go and create their own thing. I think they have maybe 6 or 7 different vibe coding tools. They have Opal, they have Gem, they have Jules, they have anti-gravity, they have AI Studio, they have AI Studio Build, probably some other ones. This is just in the vibe coding area, or agentic engineering, and then see which ones do well and then consolidate. So they're doing the same inside of the Gemini app. I've noticed they are releasing really cool things. I think yesterday they released a music generating app. So it's like Suno, but it's Google's own version. I forget the name of it, but I'll cover it later. And then they'll bring them all in eventually to the Gemini app, and it will all be bundled together. Keep an eye on them. They're doing some really cool stuff. Bundled into chat, even more of a hodgepodge of options accessible with the plus button. Yes, Hodgepodge is the right name. If you click this button here, we have deep research, shopping research, web search. Web search is kind of on by default a lot of the time now, so I don't know why that's a holdover. I remember when they added this was a big deal because this is how you got rid of hallucinations, by grounding it in websites and hoping the websites were correct. But now that's here in the menu, and we have study and learn. I covered the study mode yesterday. We have agent mode, we have canvas, and then we have the apps. And then on the left-hand side, we have even more. We have deep research, we have Codex, images, pulse, etc. There's a lot of stuff inside of ChatGPT. Most of it's not very good. Sorry. Like the image generator is fine. Is it as good as Nano Banana? No. So I don't know why I'd use that one. There is Sora, but it is not accessible here. If I turn on my VPN and go to America, I do have access to it. And I got an invite code, so it's only available in certain countries. It had a viral moment. It was kind of cool. It died off. I don't know anyone who still uses it. And why would you use it when you can use Seedbot instead? Seed Dream. I think what they're doing is throwing a lot at the wall, getting a viral moment, and then ignoring it and dropping it because they're not that exciting. Same with the ChatGPT apps. So where are they? They're hidden in here. There's an app store. Explore apps. There's this whole big thing about, oh, you'll be able to connect to booking.com and Canva. And this was a big push at the end of last year. And I don't know anyone who uses these or cares about these in any way. There's a brief flurry of, oh my God, this is the next way to make $1 billion. You release an app on this app store. Who cares? So I would say the ChatGPT ecosystem is a little more messy for sure. And then we have Claude. Claude has almost no options. Claude just does what Claude does. So it has deep research and you can access study mode by creating a project. So Claude is very focused. There's no images. There is no video creation. They're not letting you shop using Claude. There isn't an app store. No. It's just Claude. You're very focused. So it's a very different experience. All the AI models let you connect to data, such as letting AI read your email and calendar, access your file and connect to other applications. So in ChatGPT, for example, we can do add photos and files. They're connected somewhere. Where are they? Maybe they're in the settings. You're able to connect up to Google Drive, etc., etc., and in Claude as well. These are confusing. For most people doing real work, the most important feature is deep research and connecting AI to your content. But you may want to experiment with the others. That's fair, what Ethan is saying, because a lot of them are kind of fun, but not particularly useful. But being able to do research and put it in a research mode, definitely useful. Increasingly, what matters is the harness, the tools that the AI has access to. OpenAI and Anthropic have clear leads over Google. Both Claude AI and ChatGPT have the ability to write and execute code, give you files, do extensive research, and a lot more. Google Gemini's website is far less capable, even though its AI model is just as good. So if you want to mess around with that, you have to come over to AI Studio. AI Studio has a, no offense, Logan, but not a very good interface. When you land on it, you're like, what is this? Especially if you don't know anything about code, you'll look at this and be like, what is this? You need to click on build on the left. And then this is basically Lovable, but using Google. It's a chat interface where you're going to talk and build an idea. So they have the ability to create code. It's hidden away and it's in aistudio.google.com/apps, which is this build one here. And then boom, you can just get on with doing it. So this is a lot like Codex, a lot like Claude Code, but using Gemini. And there are other tools like anti-gravity, etc., which I'm not covering right now. Let's hop in and look at the harnesses, because this is where it gets complicated. And I know a lot of people get tripped up, and I get tripped up. So other apps and harnesses. It's the ecosystem of products, basically. The chatbot websites and the phone app is where most people interact with AI, but they are increasingly not where the most impressive work gets done. A growing set of other apps wrap these same models in more powerful harnesses, and they matter. So this is where, when you see impressive stuff being done with AI, this is where it's happening. If you see builds and creating apps and like visual demos and stuff and really cool stuff, it tends to be happening here, not using chat. This is like the next step up. So we have Claude Code, we have OpenAI Codex, and we have Google Anti-Gravity. It's fine, but this is really about Claude Code and OpenAI Codex. Are the most well-developed of these apps, and they are all aimed at coders. Each of them gives you an AI model access to a code base, a terminal, and the ability to write, run, and test code on its own. You describe what you want build, and the AI just goes and builds it, coming back when it's done or stuck. If you write code for a living, these tools are changing your job. Even if you don't code, they can still do a tremendous amount. This came up earlier in the chat with people who were using Claude Code, but not necessarily to code. And you can use it for other things. I use Claude Code and Codex for content creation, content management, for writing, for tasks that are not specific to code, because the harnesses and its tooling is so powerful and it can do agentic tasks for you. So research, work out how best to do something, and then get on with doing that. Does it need to build code to do that? Sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. These tools seem extremely technical and out of reach, but if you get a grasp of what they can do, you can use them outside of coding, even if you're not a programmer. Ethan continues, a couple of years ago, I became interested in how you would make an entirely paper-based LLM by providing all of the original GPT-1's internal weights and parameters. So it's 117 million numbers into a set of books. In theory, with enough time, you could use those numbers to do the math of an AI by hand. This seemed like a fun idea, but not worth doing. A week ago, I asked Claude Code to do it for me, mostly the AI working with a couple of suggestions. It made 80 beautifully laid out volumes containing all of GPT-1 along with a guide to the maths. It came up with and executed covers for each volume that visualize the interior weights. It put together a website, including the animation below, hooked it up to Stripe for payment and Lulu for print on demand, tested the whole thing and launched it for me. Notice that's not all code. That is ideation, that is project management, that is business, that is marketing, not just code. I had it made 20 books available at cost, sold out the same day. I was really annoyed. I wanted to buy one of these. All of the volumes are still available as free PDFs on the site. Let's have a quick look at that video. This is the video it made for marketing. It's quite pretty. Can you see it looks like static? These are the weights inside of the model. So I did something very similar with my genome. I gave my genome to Claude Code and I said, hey, can you code 1 pixel nucleotide in these 4 different colors and create art based on my human genome, my actual genome. They look like this, static images in 4 different colors. The project I've wanted to do for a long time, didn't know how to do, gave it to Claude Code, it was done in a few minutes. So I could set up a company where you upload your DNA securely and it generates a piece of art, prints on demand and sends it to your house. And Claude Code would do all of the heavy lifting for me. So again, there's some programming involved, but the idea itself would be a business or a piece of art, in this case, that happens to be facilitated by Claude Code. So I wouldn't call this a programming task, but something else. So other harnesses, if you don't want to deal with Claude Code, Codex and anti-gravity, there are still other harnesses. So Claude for Excel, really cool. And also embarrassing that Claude for Excel is better than Microsoft Copilot for Excel. So Claude for Excel and PowerPoint are examples of specific harnesses inside of applications. Both of them provide extensions to these programs. Claude for Excel feels a massive change in working with spreadsheets with similar impact to Claude Code for those who work with Excel for a living. Yeah, because the results are in Excel, they're easy to check. Google has some integrations with Google Sheet, but not as deeply, and OpenAI does not really have an equivalent product. Notice he hasn't even mentioned Microsoft. Microsoft have Microsoft Copilot, not even mentioned, because it's not very good. Sadly, sorry. But Claude inside of Excel, very good, extremely good. Claude Cowork, something genuinely new and deserves its own category. Released in January, it took about 2 weeks to make. Boris Cherny, the head of Claude Code, decided to make something that was a bit easier for everybody to use. So he spent about 2 weeks building Cowork. Released in Anthropic by Anthropic, creators of Claude, in January, Cowork is essentially Claude Code for non-technical work. It runs on your desktop and can work directly with your local files and your browser. However, it's much more secure and less dangerous for non-technical users because it runs inside a virtual machine with default deny networking and hard isolation baked in. They sorted out the security stuff for you, so you don't need to worry about it. This is very different to something like OpenClaw, which has this kind of power to take over your machine, but something like OpenClaw does not have all the built-in safety that an Anthropic product have. You describe an outcome, like organize these expense reports, pull data from these PDFs into a spreadsheet, draft a summary. Claude makes a plan, breaks it into subtasks, and executes them on your computer whilst you watch, or don't. You can set it up, hey, I need you to click. I've got all of these video files, and all the labeling is wrong, or all the tagging is wrong. I need you to tidy it up, sort them by date, sort them into these folders. Something that would normally take you a long time and be a pain in the ass to do. You could give it to Cowork, it would take control of your computer and get on with it. There are huge implications for all work. Most of our work is sitting at a computer, moving stuff around. If we can give Claude Cowork a terminal, if we can give it its own computer to work on, and it can work 24 hours on tasks, you can see how that could be disruptive. It's built on the same agentic architecture as Claude Code, and was largely built by Claude Code in about 2 weeks. Neither OpenAI or Google have a direct equivalent, at least this week. Cowork is still a research preview, meaning it's early and will eat through your usage limits fast, but it's a clear sign of where all of this is heading. AI that doesn't just talk to you about your work, but does your work for you. Really important distinction. If something is expensive, if something is inefficient, if something uses your tokens really quickly right now, don't worry. This is the early version of these. Remember that intelligence is getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. It is at a phenomenal rate. It's getting much cheaper. So something that might cost quite a lot to do right now will cost 1/100th next year. So you can kind of wait a little bit and these products will become better and cheaper and faster, which is unusual in technology. Pretty exciting. Next one is NotebookLM, which if you've watched any of my lives before, you know that I love it. NotebookLM is one of my favorite AI pieces of software. Let's see what Ethan says. NotebookLM is Google's answer to a different problem. How do you use AI to make sense of a lot of information? You can ask NotebookLM to do its own deep research or add in your own papers, YouTube videos, websites, or files. NotebookLM builds an interactive knowledge base you can query, turn into slides, mind maps, videos, and most famously, and overrated I think, AI-generated podcasts where two hosts discuss your material. You can even interrupt the hosts to ask questions. So I covered this on my live yesterday. I'll quickly show you what it looks like because I love NotebookLM. Change into my other account, there we go. So this is one we looked at yesterday. So I fed in some notes. Actually, this is not a good one because this was just based on one note. We'll look at this one on OpenClaw. I chucked in a bunch of websites. I had it go and find these websites and then it created a... So terrible. Which one is the slide deck? Is it this one? Yeah. So it created this, a slide deck for me that I could use in the presentation. I did not use this one, but this was created using Nano Banana inside of NotebookLM. So it can create slide decks to help you learn. It can create podcasts that you can listen to. It can create flashcards like this, which you can use. And this one got confused. It got confused because I put in the wrong sources. But here we go. What's the minimum version of Node.js required to run the OpenClaw AI assistant? I think it's Node 22. Yep, Node 22, which allows you to filter and sort all of the information, but to get it into ways that you can learn. So we have audio podcasts, video explainers, mind maps, reports, flashcards, quiz, infographic, slide deck, etc. Really cool. So I love NotebookLM. It's free as well. If you are a student, a researcher, or anyone who regularly needs to make sense of a pile of documents, NotebookLM is a very useful tool. And then Ethan says, and then there is OpenClaw. You're brave adding this. So here we go. There's OpenClaw. Even though it doesn't fit neatly into any of these categories, which you almost definitely shouldn't use. This is my line on it too. My answer is don't. It's too risky. It's fantastic, really cool. If you are not comfortable in the terminal, if you're not comfortable setting up virtual machines with security hardening, just don't. Just wait a little bit, and OpenAI or Anthropic are going to release something that will be more secure. It's too risky. So Ethan is saying you definitely shouldn't use it. I agree. OpenClaw is an open source AI agent that went viral in late January. It runs locally on your computer, connects to whatever AI model you want, and you talk to it like you were chatting with a person using standard chats like WhatsApp or iMessage. So I use WhatsApp for mine personally. It can browse the web, manage your files, send emails. It's sort of a 24/7 personal assistant that lives on your machine. This is the key thing. It is persistent. So most of these tools still require you to set it off and set it in a certain direction, go and invoke it and check on it every once in a while. My OpenClaw, my ClawBot is still running in the background right now. It is active. It is alive and checking for things. So it's persistent. It is also proactive. So I can set it up to reach out to me at certain times. It will send me a text message checking, oh, how's the work going? Here's your daily summary. Here's your update. You can set it up like you would an actual virtual assistant, an actual human assistant. Very cool. It's also a serious security risk. You are giving an AI broad access to your computer and your accounts, and no one knows exactly what dangers you're exposing yourself to. But it does serve as a sign of where things are going. 1, don't give it access to your computer. Put it on a separate computer or a VPS. And 2, don't give it access to your accounts. Allow it to set up its own accounts and run off its own emails. In the same way that you would if you were hiring an employee, you would use like a password keychain. Give them access to a set of passwords in exactly the same way you do that. So you don't give access to your computer, you don't give access to your accounts. So I would push back on Ethan here because that is a dumb way to use it. Okay, so let's finish this up. So what to do now? So let me simplify. If you're just getting started, pick one of the 3 systems, ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini, and pay the $20. Select the advanced model. The advice from my book still holds. Invite AI to everything you do. Start using it for real work. Upload a document that you're actually working on. Give the AI a complex task in the form of a RFP or SOP, standard operating procedure. Have a back and forth conversation and push it. This alone will teach you more than any guide. You just have to start using it. finding the limitations, what it can do, what it can't do, and how to tell the difference yourself. And that requires you to get your hands dirty. It is a skill. This is not knowledge-based. This is skill-based. So when I give workshops, I make sure people are actually using it. It is no good to just tell people how to use AI. They have to use it themselves. It's a skill. If you're already comfortable with chatbots, try the specific apps. NotebookLM is free and easy to use and makes it a good start. Anthropic offers the most powerful package in Claude Code, Claude Cowork, as well as specialized PowerPoint and Excel plugins. Give them a try. Again, something you actually need done. Watch what it does, steer it when it goes wrong. You aren't prompting, you are, as I wrote in my last piece, managing. So increasingly, management and leadership ability is going to be important, because as we begin to manage a swarm or a team of agents, it's going to be about delegating tasks to them by giving them good instructions, by being able to give feedback. We're going to elevate ourselves and start to talk to these different agents rather than doing the technical work ourselves. Management skills are going to become incredibly important. The shift from chatbot to agent is the most important change in how people use AI since ChatGPT launched. It is still early. AI agent was the big buzzword last year, 2025. That was too early. We are now in 2026 starting to see what it actually means. That's why things like OpenClaw are so exciting, because that was the realization for a lot of people. As soon as people started using it, that realization kicked in. It's like, okay, this is different. I'm not invoking the AI. I'm not going to the AI. The AI is coming to me. Very different. Ethan continues, these tools are still hard to figure out and will still do baffling things. But an AI that does things is fundamentally more useful than an AI that says things. And learning to use it that way is worth your time. Fully agree. So I'm going to put this whole article into the newsletter along with my commentary. I agree with almost everything Ethan says, so there won't be much for me to say, but I will provide the article so you can get access to it. That is going to be available at aiwithkyle.com. Go there, click on join the community. You'll also get access to a bunch of courses for free. Catalog of all my playbooks. There's about 100 playbooks talking about how you can use AI to build businesses. All of the news, add it to a community, just loads of stuff. And that's all free at aiwithkyle.com. I'm going to finish up this live and then go and answer some questions. But thank you so much for being here, and I will see you. I'm going to continue with TikTok. Anthropic really screwed up. I'm just starting to learn about AI, and there's no way I'd use their services after seeing this PR disaster. They're having a really rough 2026. So Anthropic have their legal department stomped on OpenClaw, well, ClawBot when it was ClawBot, which from a PR point of view, a nightmare. And they look like the big bad guys now, unfortunately, because they've always been the good guys in AI. They lost all of that goodwill in the AI community in like a week. They doubled down on that with this new, let me pull it up. Here we go. These kind of legals by basically saying you may not use Claude. You may not use your Claude subscription inside of OpenClaw. That is against our terms of services. They started shutting down people's account, which allowed OpenAI, ChatGPT, to come in and say, hey, bring your subscriptions, like just use ChatGPT. So this is a full-on attack at Anthropic, which has led to these awkward moments, as we covered earlier, over in Delhi yesterday. This is Sam Altman and Dario Amodei refusing to hold hands, whilst all the other AI leaders held hands in solidarity. The head of OpenAI and the head of Anthropic refused to. We're going to see more squabbles. And at the same time, the Pentagon is potentially going to label them a supply chain risk and disallow anyone who deals with the US military to have contracts with Anthropic. So Anthropic are having one hell of a 2026 so far. And anyone in their PR department right now, Godspeed. Godspeed. But they make great models. Their product's fantastic, but whoosh. Google Lyra. Thank you, AI Rogue. So I mentioned I haven't used it yet, but there's a new Google tool. Is this it? Lyria. Oh, okay. Should we do it? Kawaii metal, R&B, Afropop, emo, cinematic, 8-bit. What should we do? Okay, Anthropic AI are having a hard time with PR in 2026. The ClawBot, OpenClaw debacle. Then Pentagon threatening to declare them a supply chain risk. Let's see if we can make a song about this. So if this is Gemini based, which I think it will, it might be like Nano Banana Pro, where it will go off and do some research to work out what I'm talking about. Let's do an 8-bit fast AI plus. Don't I have that? So this is a new music generator called Lyria. I think it's free. I'm using my personal account, not my business account. That is why. Let's see how that goes in a minute. AI Rogue. Sounds like a complicated... Okay, it's going for it. The track is ready for you to play. There's no lyrics. Why did I bother telling you all that? Because it's 8-bit? Because one of the great things about Suno is that you can have lyrics, like really funny lyrics. Let's see if we can do that again, because that's disappointing, because I just got an 8-bit song. 90s rap, there we go. Can you connect NotebookLM API to automate LinkedIn posts? I don't know. Does it have an API? Let's have a look. API for NotebookLM. We just launched an unofficial API. The fact that this exists, this auto content API, makes me think that there isn't an official API for NotebookLM. Oh, that was a year ago though. This was 2 years ago. I don't think there's an API, but I might be wrong. There is, okay, again, someone's creating an open source implementation of NotebookLM. So the fact that these things exist suggests that there is no API, but I might be wrong. But I assume this, you hook up to Gemini and then you can get the Gemini API and you'd get something similar, maybe. Check out this 90s boom bap track about the turbulence Anthropic is facing in 2026. Is ready for you to play. I have lyrics this time.
Yo, check the mic, 1, 2. This is how we do. Yo, Anthropic's PR in 26 is a train wreck. Word up. First that ClawBot, OpenClaw debacle had the whole world bugging, man. Now the Pentagon's talking supply chain risk. That's heavy. Know what I'm saying? To the cipher. Stay scheming on the low. Peace to the cipher. Let the whole wide world know. Peace to the we ain't playing no games.
Okay, so I don't know if anyone's used Suno. I don't personally use it that much, but what Suno is really good at is Suno will take your idea and write some lyrics for you and put it into a proper song. This did was take some of the words that I'd given it and use them as the lines. That's my fault because I didn't bother to write it on 90s rap. It's a little bit disappointing compared to Suno. Suno's a paid thing. This is a free thing in Gemini. This is kind of cool. But once you are used to using Suno and having it write the lyrics for you, having it come up with a composition, create a composition, this is less exciting, but it's fine. It's perfectly fine. It's telling how normal this kind of thing becomes once you are, like, very quickly I'm like, that's fine. Whereas a couple of years ago, somebody would be like, that is magic. How the hell did it do that? So it tells us how quickly this is moving. Lyria is free, so it's cool. Good day. Can NotebookLM output in another language? From English to Spanish or Italian, Greek? Absolutely. Let me go to my NotebookLM. You're going to log me out. I don't know how they can make all of this stuff and not manage the login process. How do we do this? And then you'd want notebook in another language from English to Spanish. So what I could do, let's try. So cognitive friction, this is the thing. What I'm going to do is say, give me a report. So this is one of the simplest, and I can do create my own. There we go. Asked and answered. So we can put it in Afrikaans, Azerbaijan, Catalan, Cebuano, and the Filipino languages. Yes, is the answer. Let's see if we could do that with the other ones, with the audio. Yes, choose language. So I can make a podcasting Haitian Creole, Slovenian. Let's do it in Finnish and generate that. Yes, it looks like you can. Very cool. You could also feed in sources in a different language as well. And then I kind of assume it will default to that language. Maybe. Let's do a slide decks, choose language. You can do them in all different languages. Very cool. Thank you. I'd never thought to check that. The genome, someone will clone Kyle. I remixed it a little bit, so it's a little bit trickier to clone me. What is an API? Let me pull up NotebookLM for. So let's do this. So it has a research. So I can say, what is an API? And it's going to do some research for me. So you'll see them appear on the left. So we're going to do this as a way to show off NotebookLM, because I want more people using NotebookLM because it's fantastic. So see, it's grabbed a bunch of resources here. I can view them and I can say, this one's good, this one's not good. It's tricky though when you don't know about the subject. So we're just going to assume these are all fine. So imports them, and then it will have a notebook here. So the first thing we can do, we can then talk to this notebook, which is built off all these sources. So I can start with what is an API. I think it's telling me here. So an API, application programming interface, is a set of rules and protocols that allow different software applications to communicate with each other. So what we'd say is like, I'm not technical, ELI 5, explain line 5. And so obviously you could do this in ChatGPT, but what this is doing is it's using these sources, which we believe to be good sources, and these sources could also include things like YouTube videos. So I can paste in a YouTube video and it'll pull the information from that source. We can also upload files. So if you have a book, a a textbook, for example, that you have the rights to use. You can put it in here. You can connect it to your Google Drive if you want to make sense of a large amount of information. So technically, if you're doing a course, electrical engineering or whatever, you could put all of your course material into here and use it to create learning assistants. So here we go. Here's the best explained like in 5 version. So the best analogy is a restaurant. Imagine you're at a restaurant, you're sitting at a table, you are the user, and there is a kitchen full of chefs cooking food, the system or the server. You want to order food, but you can't just walk into the kitchen and start yelling at the chefs. You need someone to take your message to the kitchen and bring your food back to you. The API is the waiter. So normally the way I describe it is you have 2 pieces of software and you need to send messages back and forward between them. That's what the API is for. But I love this analogy. So the API is the waiter. So here's how it works. The request, you look at the menu and tell the waiter, the API, I want a burger. The process, the waiter takes your order to the kitchen. They don't need to know how the stove works or how the chef chops the onions. You just trust the waiter to tell the kitchen what you want. The kitchen cooks a burger, gives it to the waiter, and the waiter brings it to your table. In the computer world, an API is the messenger that takes your request to a computer system and brings you back the answer. And then if you wanted to go deeper inside of NotebookLM, we can produce a quiz, we can make flashcards, we can make a video explainer, we can make a podcast where we listen for 12 minutes about what an API is. We can make slide decks, we can make infographics. It's just an amazing way to learn things if you are curious about a topic. Thank you for that question because it let me show you on NotebookLM as well. Brilliant, thanks. Thank you so much, everybody. And remember to subscribe on aiwithkyle.com, where there'll be a summary of everything we've covered, all your questions and stuff, all of the links to things like Google Lyria, links to Ethan Mollick's guide, resources for you to learn this stuff and to continue your learning journey. So again, aiwithkyle.com, totally free, and you can sign up there. Thank you so much, everyone, and I will see you